if you're going to go to Hume's argument against induction, I was going to say, first of all, it commits someone to regress, not necessarily circularity. And I don't think the uniformity principle is well defined. So, for example, every birthday I've had so far, I haven't turned 40. Therefore, I'll probably never turn 40.
Yeah, and I'm still alive. I've never died, so I'm never going to. Right, exactly.
Yeah, a more technical or sharper, if you can track it, is I'll define a new predicate called GRU, such that any object is GRU when it is green if observed before time t and blue otherwise. And by enumerative induction, we could infer that all observed emeralds are green, and then the next one is green. But using the same schema, we infer that they're all GRU, et cetera, et cetera. So these predictions being incompatible are reasons why I'm going to conclude that Hume is using a quantifier shift fallacy, the word induction, as there's no general rule without any further information. Wittgenstein had a funny, go ahead.
Do you personally presuppose that induction is a meaningful concept that obtains in reality? That's possible?
So, yeah, I'll say my argument I would probably use Kant's transcendental argument that at least some version of UP are preconditions and necessary for my personal experience internally. And if you ask me to justify it for you, I would use like an Aristotelian transcendental argument that renders any skeptical or any skepticism meaningless because they can't expect a response in principle. So if you don't accept UP, why are you asking me anything? So my belief is incorrigible.
Okay, so there's a major problem with a Kantian or an Aristotelian approach, and that is that neither one's going to be grounded in the triune God of Scripture. And so what I'd like to know is, why would you attempt to ground any of these things without the triune God of Scripture, who's the necessary precondition for any knowledge and for any of these presuppositions? How do you justify these presuppositions?
So probably for virtue theoretic reasons. I mean, God is like a pretty huge commitment to introduce into your metaphysics.
But if he's necessary, sorry, go on.
Yeah. If he's necessary, then yeah, you have to. But he doesn't seem necessary, at least for the reasons demonstrated thus far.
How do you ground the laws of logic without in a non-arbitrary way without the triune God of Scripture?
Probably just the same Aristotelian transcendental argument that any skepticism about them is meaningless because you're both asking me something and not asking me something if non-contradiction isn't true, etc. So your question is meaningless. If that's
what you've said is that the laws of logic are inescapable. My question is, given the attributes of the laws of logic, how do you ground them without God?
It depends what you mean by grounding. Are you asking for like a causal or explanatory link? I mean,
how do you account for them? How do you account for them? Yeah, metaphysically, epistemologically.
I mean, this is just too broad. I don't know exactly what you're asking. I'm sorry.
No problem. What is it in your metaphysical belief system, your accepted form of metaphysics, that would give rise to a belief in the laws of logic, which definitionally are conceptual, immaterial, absolute, universal, discovered, not invented, 3 in 1. There's always one that I forget. Absolute, objective. Anyway, they have these attributes, which, given my worldview, I perfectly account for them. They're grounded in the mind of God. They are expressions of the mind of God. They're exactly what you would expect given my worldview. Having seemingly arbitrarily ruled out the very obvious existence of that God, the one true God, what is it in your foundational beliefs, namely your metaphysics and your epistemology, that would ground both the existence of these laws, or call it the reality of these laws, and your ability to know them?
That's like 15 different questions, but I'll try to respond as
no, just two questions.
One is
your epistemology and your metaphysics lead to logic. How? One question.
Well, first of all, I'm not necessarily excluding the triune God of Scripture. I'm just saying I haven't been presented a reason to introduce it for theoretical virtuous reasons. I don't want to add things that are unnecessary. Now, if it was, I would add it. But getting to your question,
well, that's assuming. I mean, that's really begging the question. You're assuming that it's not necessary to presuppose God. I'm asking you why that's not necessary.
Well, why I do, I guess initially, for those reasons, I mean, it doesn't seem to be necessary. I guess I could use some sort of like phenomenal conservatism such that, I mean, it doesn't seem to me, and I would have like prima facie justification for not believing it.
How would you justify that?
Justify phenomenal conservatism?
Yeah, how would you justify the deliverances of your whether it's intuition or perception, as being even 1 degree, 1% certain or reliable? How do you justify that without already presupposing all these other preconditions, all these other presuppositions, which all rest upon God? Like what is it in your metaphysics, not just your perception, but your metaphysics and your epistem? Yeah, well, I guess we're going back to epistemology now, because you made a claim about what you perceive and what seems to you to be reasonable. I'm asking you for your metaphysical and epistemological presuppositions which give rise to your belief in the validity of that perception. Does that make sense?
Um, Not really, but I'll try to answer. So what, like
What ground are you
those,
standing on? Where are you standing? What's your foundation?
um, I mean, it depends what you mean by foundation. Like, I assume like, because there's like three different meanings of that term. Are you talking like metaphysical grounding, like some anti-transitive and things like,
Metaphysical and epistemological, yes. What is ultimate reality, and how do you know anything?
so I mean, that's another question. Like, there's so many questions here. So, like, my definition of knowledge, I'm probably like I take it like a defeasibility view of it. So it'd be like a justified true belief, and then also the addition with the absence of defeaters to cut out Gettier cases.
Why?
And it seems to be the most accurate at capturing my pre-theoretical notions of what knowledge is. It's sort of like a semantic question.
So it seems to you that that's the most correct or reliable epistemology. It seems according to what standard of certainty or semblance, I guess. Like by what standard did you judge that to be the best?
Well, the standard would be capturing enough examples and ruling out counterexamples. So that's sort of like what I do when defining a word.
Don't you have to presuppose the very standard that you're using to judge the standard at that point?
The standard that I'm using to judge the standard.
Yeah.
Oh, are you talking about the criterion problem?
Maybe, maybe. Um, it seems, based on what you just said, it seems like you are presupposing or assuming, maybe even arbitrarily, that you have these reliable truth-seeking faculties, intuition being one of them, reason being another, your sense experience being another, and you're using these to come to an epistemology. You're deciding on which epistemology you're going to adopt. You're like, well, I don't want to just use the throw the dart at the dartboard method. I'll use the defeasibility method, or maybe that's a form of rationalism. My question is, don't you have to already presuppose the reliability of your truth-seeking faculties to arrive at that epistemology? And I would just want to know, why did you presuppose that in the first place? I'm really trying to get down to what is the grounding of your epistemology. Like, how did you ground that? How do you account for the reliability of your knowing anything to even 1 degree of certainty? Does that question not make sense?
So you're asking like my is my introspection reliable?
Any of your faculty? Yeah, introspection. Um, yes, sure. Let's go with that. Yes. I mean, it would apply
So
to any of your faculties, but we can go with that one.
okay, so I like on my definition of knowledge, then this is not a problem. Like there's no defeaters to it, and then I have justification from phenomenal conservatism that it seems true. So I have some prima facie justification for believing it, and I also believe it, and so it would be knowledge on my definition.
Okay, so go back to the first thing that you said. Um, Prior to saying you had prima facie uh, justification, it seems. Say it again. What was it? And your definition of epistemology, and then what did you say? Can
I'm
you?
forgetting what was what was the question again?
The part of this is because it's 1:46 a.m. here.
Yeah,
My,
it's late me. That's why I'm losing track too.
yeah,
Sorry.
totally. Okay, look. I want to make it unbelievably simple. Um, you arrived at an epistemology. I presume your goal was not to randomly pick an epistemology arbitrarily. I'm presuming that you believe you have a justification for deciding on that epistemology. But As an agnostic, you are undecided about ultimate reality, and that has implications for your epistemology. What I'm looking for is, how did you land on that epistemology outside of an arbitrary process like I just picked one?
So it's like a semantic question. Like you're asking me like what I mean by knowledge, and what I mean by
No, I'm
knowledge is
not.
what I defined it to be. And
Okay.
so if you're asking me, like I just I'm not clear on what you're asking me.
Okay.
It sounds like the
That
criterion problem. Like how do I know what's knowledge or something? But
Not quite. It's literally you have to assume or presuppose an epistemology in order to arrive at your epistemology. And unless you just do it arbitrarily, it's going to be viciously circular. You have to already presuppose you're begging the question in favor of whatever your chosen epistemology is. And you might try to justify it, subsequently by saying, yeah, this works for me. But if it's based in a non-rational, arbitrary process in the first place, everything that follows from that is going to be non-rational, definitionally. So trying to see how you avoided that, but we'll have to pick it up again
I
another time.
guess yeah, another time. I'll just say like there's these things, and I just want to call these things knowledge, I guess. And this seems to capture pretty accurately my pre-theoretical notion of what that should be. But
Which you
I'll
arrived at
wrap it up.
arbitrarily.
Definitions are arbitrary, but like technically arbitrary. But I mean, I have like reasons. Like it's like a semantic question. Like I don't see
Okay.
it's like saying is English more correct than Spanish? Like I don't understand what that means, but
Okay. Not
maybe
quite
it's
the
late
same
and I'll
thing,
try
but
again
yeah,
later.
we'll try again another
Another
time.
time, yeah.
Yeah, one of us is, that's all right. Thanks for watching this video. If you enjoyed it, please give it a like and subscribe to this channel. Here's a video that you should watch next. And if you really want to take your learning further, you need to know about the Hammer and Anvil Society, our premier discipleship community for Christian men. Learn more at thethink.institute/society. Until next time, I hope it made you think.